Is the electric vehicle market about to hit a wall? This past week, we've seen some eye-opening developments. From leasing companies ringing alarm bells to car makers barely dodging major fines and Jaguar's design team questioning their future. The world of electric vehicles has never looked more unpredictable. What's really happening behind the scenes in the EV world? And what does it mean for the future? Let's dive in. Let's kick things off with leasing companies, who are sounding some serious alarms about the future of electric vehicles. It's no surprise that EVs tend to depreciate faster than their petrol or diesel counterparts. But here's where it gets interesting. Leasing firms have traditionally offset these depreciation losses by relying on the high residual values of petrol and diesel vehicles. However, as electric cars make up a larger share of the market, this model is beginning to break down. Where EVs used to account for 10 to 15% of lease contracts, that number is now creeping up toward 40%. And at this scale, the math doesn't add up. With EV residual values remaining unstable, mainly due to constant discounts and the ever-evolving market dynamics, leasing companies are struggling to remain profitable. They're stuck between the government's ambitious ZEV mandate, which pushes for a fleet of electric vehicles, and the harsh market realities that consumers are still hesitant to make the full switch. In short, leasing companies are caught in a bind. And we could be in for some significant price hikes in the sector if they try to recover these losses. Now let's talk infrastructure. It's not looking great on this front either. You might remember BT's big electric fleet order from last week, 35,000 all-electric vans, the UK's largest ever. Well, the news has taken a downturn. BT has now suspended their EV charger rollout scheme after installing only one charger out of their planned 60,000. What happened? The reason given was slow government funding and a lack of interest in electric vehicles, hardly a ringing endorsement for the progress many hoped for. This was supposed to be the government's flagship infrastructure project to support EV adoption. But rather than backing initiatives like this, the government seems to be more focused on pushing manufacturers to sell more electric vehicles. Yet, with infrastructure projects like this stalling, it raises serious questions about whether the government's policies are aligned with the reality of EV adoption. Next up, let's dive into a bit of corporate drama. Jaguar has been making headlines recently, but not for the reasons you might expect. A leaked letter reveals that their design team has serious doubts about the company's controversial engineers and designers at Jaguar aren't too pleased with how things are unfolding. The decision to outsource branding work to Accenture Interactive has left many feeling sidelined, especially since this project is so tied to Jaguar's identity. The designers expressed their dissatisfaction, stating that relying on external input for a project so closely tied to the brand was a huge misstep. Now this is a sad one. Jaguar clearly needed to evolve, but this approach seems to have left their dedicated team feeling disconnected. Any of us who've worked in a corporate environment can understand how frustrating that must be. Decisions are made with little consultation, and then you're left to adapt. What could have been a golden opportunity to evolve with the times has now turned into a public relations disaster. And with Jaguar's proud heritage, it's tough to watch them lose their footing like this. Turning our attention to some positive news, or at least what seems like positive news at first glance. Despite the ZEV mandate's push for increased EV adoption, it looks like the dreaded fine for manufacturers not hitting their electric vehicle targets will be avoided this year. Manufacturers who didn't hit the 22% EV target for 2024 have managed to exploit a series of loopholes. They can purchase credits, borrow from future years, or even buy credits from other manufacturers. Companies like Tesla, who have an abundance of credits, are more than happy to sell them to the highest bidder. It may sound like a win for manufacturers as they avoid hefty fines. But don't be fooled. This doesn't solve the bigger issues. With EVs still struggling in terms of affordability, residual value and consumer demand, the £4 billion in unsustainable discounts that manufacturers have been relying on to shift stock in 2024 doesn't bode well for the industry's long-term stability. So while this might offer temporary relief, the EV sector's troubles are far from over. Now here's an interesting development that may surprise some of you. According to last year's sales data, hybrids are making a real comeback, and they may hold the key to bridging the gap between petrol cars and full electric vehicles. In fact, hybrids have outsold electric vehicles almost every single month. The reason is simple. Hybrids offer the convenience of not needing to be plugged in, while still offering impressive fuel efficiency and range. Plus, for many people who don't have access to a home charger or a dedicated parking space, hybrids provide an obvious solution. The costs of electric vehicles, especially with the price of lithium-ion batteries, remain prohibitively high for many consumers. But with hybrids, there's less reliance on expensive battery tech, meaning lower prices and faster adoption. It's a win-win. However, the government's stance on hybrids is troubling. Under the ZEV mandate, hybrids, even plug-in hybrids, are being phased out. In fact, a recent government consultation suggested that they may no longer be available for sale by 2030 or 2035, depending on how the petrol and diesel bans play out. This raises a big question. Is the government missing a trick by dismissing hybrids? They could provide an immediate solution to the market's challenges, but it seems the focus is squarely on full electric adoption, regardless of the hurdles still in place. Finally, let's wrap things up on a lighter note with a funny yet serious story from the world of electric vehicle charging. An EV owner recently received a £70 fine after trying to charge his car in a Deal car park. The issue? His phone was dead, and you need a charged phone to initiate the charging process. After walking home, charging his phone and returning to the car park, he found a fine had been slapped on his vehicle. It's a classic example of how flawed the charging infrastructure still is. Imagine needing a charged phone to fuel your car. It's a serious problem in the making. So there you have it, a snapshot of the current state of the EV world. From leasing companies struggling to stay afloat, to infrastructure delays, to hybrid vehicles potentially becoming the unsung heroes of the transition, the road ahead is anything but clear. What do you think about these developments? Are we on the right path to a fully electric future, or are we missing some crucial pieces to make it happen? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's breakdown, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more updates from the world of motor innovation. Until next time, this is Motorverse, where the future of cars meets the road.